way.
You'd be great, you and Ralph.
Don't know if I could. Have a kid in a world like this.
Oh, that's happy, thanks.
Really, though, it is like that Rook woman said. Things were okay a few years ago, before 2008. Do you remember back then we used to think politics was boring?
Those were the days.
But now, I worry about everything. I don't know what to worry about first. Never mind the government. It's the sodding banks. They terrify me. And it's not even them. It's the companies, the brands, the corporations. They treat us like algorithms while they go around poisoning the air and the temperature and the brain. And don't even start me on ISIS. Well, now we've got America. Never thought I'd be scared of America in a million years, but we've got fake news and false facts. I don't even know what's true anymore. What sort of world are we in? Because if it's this bad now, what's it going to be like for you? Huh? 30 years' time, 10 years, 5 years? What's it going to be like?
This is from the BBC serial called Years and Years from 2017, as I think, or which is follows a turbulent 15 years in the future of one British family. And here in this scene, one of the main characters, he talks about how we have lost our faith in the future. Because the future doesn't look anymore like this. This is the future. When I was kid or teenager in the 80s, the future was something bright, something focused on the really cool gadgets, and something focused on really like a kind of feeling like a future we were dreaming, and we were like every morning we were dreaming about what is going to happen tomorrow, with some kind of faith in the future and some kind of really excitement. But with the process, with some theoreticians called the slow cancellation of the future, which started in the second part of the last century, of the 20th century, our future has been slowly colonized by the dominant economic model. And sadly, we have lost our ability to imagine alternatives, what is possible, what is probable, and what is desirable. And design, as one of the main drivers of the modernism, since its rapid growth during the last century, mostly played this uncritical supporting role to the industry and to the application of technology. And of course, in this century, with globalization and new technologies, for example, big data, automatization, Internet of Things, smart city, nano and biotechnologies, all these new technologies provided a great possibilities in the context of which design is the fundamental distinctive element of new products and new services. All these new products, systems and services developed in such context, with design as a driver of innovation, had a dramatic consequences on the society. And in a short time have shocked economic and legal and labor systems in the many cities and countries, for example, Uber, Airbnb, and the similar product or services. Unfortunately, design had its role in the building of so-called Anthropocene, or some people call it Capitalocene time where we are living now, which is more than ever in human history, which more than ever in human history open possibilities for extreme catastrophic scenarios. And on the other hand, also back to these scenarios, it's not the kind of distant future scenario. There are scenarios which is almost happening now, or there are scenarios which is really coming in the near future. But on the other hand, we see, or we have seen around us a new design competitions focusing on finding solution for the biggest international problems. It's a kind of direction or trend that brought back this modernistic myths about this revolutionary role of design as a discipline that would change the world. And number of designers or design stars believe that new disasters or time of crisis create new opportunities for designers. It looked that designers were the only ones capable of stopping this cycle of capitalism. But these projects, most of the time bringing approaches that intended to resolve problems, they have been resulted from the technological development with new innovations. But, and that in most cases results in design and production of another new technology or another new technologies. And this phenomena, we have been described as a so-called Western melancholy. It's a process in which designers focus on the consequences of the current situation instead of dealing with the causes of particular problem. There are projects that carry mostly this idea about genius creative person or scientists who are the only ones possessing the necessary knowledge and wisdom and who are going to save, of course, via innovation and technology, the planet from self-destruction. And if we look deeper, such colossal and mythic projects use the same rhetoric and ideology of the past centuries, as well terms like conquest, colonization, and so on and so on. This phenomena of Western melancholy can be also observed in the mainstream Hollywood production. For example, this is a blockbuster Geostorm from, I think, 2018 or something like this, where in this scenario at the beginning, there is a network of satellites around the planet, again, new technology, which controls the climate change. And Geostorm is just one of the many movies dealing with climate change, produced at a mainstream level during the last decade. I'm going to show you lots of examples from the pop culture because design was always in relationship with the pop culture, but is also interesting as a kind of study of the trends in the society. And it's just one of the examples of these scenarios where a human mythical hero scientist saves the planet. And one of the most important science fiction writers, Ursula Le Guin, she talks about so-called techno-heroism. She's very critical, and she called this similar trend as a techno-heroism. And this imaginary of the future are not so unexpected. If you look into today education, which is mostly still based on this hyper-techno optimism. So this worldview is rooted in the number of dogmas. For example, that human evolved from the observer into creator, and then in the name of the progress and grow, he or we can change environments. And that these consequences of human activity is going to be resolved by means of science and technology anyway. We can understand this Western melancholy as the ultimate consequences of accepting our incapacity to stop the devastation of environment. And however, as a reaction, designers started to practice different approaches to design, moving from this dominant perception and conventional design practices and starting to rethinking the role of technology in our everyday lives, focusing on implications rather than applications of technology, which means not just working on applications of the different new and cool technologies, but thinking about possible scenarios, what is going to happen when this technology starting or became part of our everyday life. They started to speculate about new technological, but as well social, economical, and political futures. And as I said before, how new technologies will change our life when it comes to our homes. This is something probably some of you are familiar with. It's a Gartner, it's a forecasting company, forecasting the future in technology. And this is their diagram showing what is the cycle of new technologies in perception in everyday life, from this beginning at the beginning of the graph to this excitement and the peak of this graph, to at the end we see like normalization, or we call domestication of technology, when some technology became part of our everyday life. And speculative design practice, it's probably one of the most significant example of such new design practices, expanding this critical practice toward imagination and diverse vision of the possible future scenarios. Its root is something which is called English critical design, which started in the late 90s and became established in the beginning of the 2000s. At Royal College of Art in UK, in London, started as a kind of practice, and then educational practice by Anthony Dunn and Fiona Raby. And this is this diagram, it's kind, they call it AB manifesto. It's basically a manifesto, where in the left column we see the traditional design practice, and in the right column we see what are the characteristics of the critical and speculative design practice. So moving from affirmative to critical, from problem solving to problem finding, from providing answers to ask questions, and so on and so on. It's a kind of manifesto which is deeply in the roots of the critical and speculative design practice. But if you go even more backward to into the past, one of the main historical references are, of course, the Italian radical practice in design and architecture from the 70s and 60s, mostly from 70s and 80s, which confronted the high modernism as a dominant ideology of their time, by focusing on social issues and rethinking the profession of the design and architecture. And speculative design, our practice is dealing with the notion what is the preferable future and for whom is the preferable. This is the future cone, one of the main tools which use people dealing with future forecasting, or of course and critical speculative designers. And you see it's a cone because the future is not linear. There is a multiplicity of the possible futures. So we're starting from today and we're going from today to a certain future. This future could be like linear, or it could be somewhere in this cone, which is here. So there is a probable future, which it's like all the circumstances in the world today, or your local context, stay the same. We're going to end up in the probable future. But there is also lots of other possibilities. There are plausible futures, and there's like huge possibilities of possible futures, all outside this cone. It's not scientifically possible. So you can see that the future, there is no one future, and there is like lots of opportunity in the future. And what we as speculative designers do, we are trying to imagine all different possible scenarios in order to discuss, to think about, to be prepared, to be critical about all these possible futures we see on this diagram. And of course, what is a preferable future, and for whom is a preferred, and for whom is preferable, for the corporation, for the industry, for government, for us as the citizens. and also who owns the future. Do we as the citizens or individuals owns the future? And this is a kind of space or design space we are working or we are dealing with. And it is related to the series of similar practices you can see here. It's, for example, critical design, design fiction, radical design, discursive design, traditional design, and so on, and so on. And we as the practitioners and the people who do deal also with the methodology of the field, we see it more as a kind of approach or kind of attitude or position rather than traditionally defined methodology. So, but however, we can still point some of the distinctive characteristics of the approach, and we could determine a basic framework. And since the speculative design continuously interact with the other related practices, fields, and disciplines, it uses any methods and tools and approach that are accessible and appropriate at a given moment. For example, in our project, they are not only designers, they are people coming from different backgrounds, from IT, architecture, social science, psychology, modern art, anthropology, ethnography, civil construction. So there is a kind of a framework or kind of approach where all the different backgrounds could discuss together and trying to build a different project or scenarios of different futures.